So to kick things off today, as is our standard with the U events, is a farmer panel discussion. We've got a really interesting, diverse panel here today, and we're glad to have them here. These guys are really innovative in the way they grow sorghum and in the way they market sorghum and how they add value to the crop that they grow. So we're going to just start it off with a few general questions, but it only works if you guys ask questions of them. So we'll, if our sorghum panelists can come up here, we'll kind of get rolling. Like I said, we'll start it off with just some biography type questions, but please do ask questions of our growers. That's the way this is really going to work well for you guys. So coming up is Zack Rendel from Miami, Oklahoma. He is the 6th generation to farm Rendel Farms, along with his dad Greg and uncle Brent. They produce sorghum, soybeans, canola, corn, and wheat. Zack is an active member of the National Sorghum Producers and participates in their annual sorghum yield contest, where he has placed 1st and 3rd in the state of Oklahoma for non-irrigated conventional sorghum. Zack is also a recent graduate of the Sorghum Checkoff's Leadership Sorghum class, part of Class 3. When not farming, he and his wife Christy are involved with the 2 kids' sports activities ranging from football, soccer, and basketball to mutton busting. So Zack, have a seat. Earl Roemer is a 4th generation farmer and businessman from West Central Kansas. He has a background in both animal and plant bioscience. He has a diversified family farm that produces livestock in the state of Kansas and forages. He's held national leadership roles in Kansas and on the national boards. He's the founder and president of New Life Market. The company focuses on the production, milling, and processing of specific grain sorghums containing unique quality and chemistry characteristics. These products are being marketed into the functional food, beverage, and ingredient industries. The sorghum grain used in this business is produced under an extremely strict management and identity preserved program that provides consumers with excellent quality functional foods and beverages that are in high demand. Earl, thank you. And our last gentleman on the panel is J.B. Stewart, a 4th generation farmer from Keys, Oklahoma in Cimarron County. He owns and operates the 160 acres homesteaded by his great-grandfather. He graduated of Oklahoma Panhandle State University with a BS degree in chemistry and animal science. In 1970, he married Carol Worth. They have 3 kids and 8 grandkids. JB is a member of the First Baptist Church of Keys, serves on the Cimarron County FSA committee, or had for 9 years, and was elected to the school board 5 times. He is past chairman of the Oklahoma Sorghum Commission and is currently vice president of Oklahoma Genetics Incorporated and is serving his last year of a 3rd term as board of director of the National Sorghum Producers. So, and JB also farms with his son, Jared, in Cimarron and Texas counties. They also own Hopkins Ag Supply, LLC, an agribusiness that sells fertilizers, ag chemicals, seed, and general farm supplies. So, that is our panel discussion. You will note that these guys all have a pretty diverse background, and we're just going to get rolling. Let's make sure our mics are on here, gentlemen. They're not. Let's see. Okay, here we go. On the bottom, there's a red dot. Technical difficulties. You probably don't even need these. We'll really use them since they're paid for. All right. We'll start with Zack, kind of work our way down with Earl and JB. Zack. Zack and I were in the Leadership Sorghum program that just completed. It's an excellent opportunity. Craig Meeker also was in that. Leadership Sorghum, by the way, is a just fantastic 15-month program. If any of you are interested in applying for Leadership Sorghum, they are taking applications now. It's a National Sorghum Producers effort, and it was just an excellent opportunity for us. So Zack, just kind of share with us how long you've been growing grain sorghum, and tell a little bit about your farm.
Okay, well, I'm the 6th generation, like Bill said. I've been growing grain sorghum since I could walk, basically, or at least helping out on the farm. Me personally, on my own farm, our family farm is 3 different farms all together in one. My father, my uncle, and myself. I've been growing grain sorghum for 8 years now, all through high school and then after I graduated. Sorghum fits into our operation along with corn, but basically it's my drought insurance. As we all know, 2011 and 2012 really were hard years. 2011, I did not grow any grain sorghum because it was too wet first of the year to get it in, so we planted all of the corn we could and then went to soybeans, and that was a bad decision to do because we had no diversity there to save us from the drought. We had a couple neighbors that planted a few acres, and as we watched the corn grow up nice green and then completely die out, their grain sorghum was just trucking right on down the road, come up, and it was some of the best sorghum that they had grown that year. So the next year we made sure that we had our priorities straight and the grain sorghum in first before the corn. So that kind of changed my thinking on how I approached my farm. Where corn was king, it was actually now second, and sorghum was now my king. So I could at least make a profit in a hard year.
Earl, same question. Tell us a little bit about your operation and where sorghum fits.
Now you're going from 6th generation to 4th generation, and maybe we're getting to 3rd or 4th with JB here, but that's dating us a little bit. But to give you a little brief background about my farming operation, what I've done, I've always been involved in value-added agriculture. Had a purebred swine operation in high school, 4-H. Went to purebred cattle operation, Angus, Solera cattle, did embryo transfer up until the mid-1990s. A lot of that was out of economic reality and necessity because our farming operation wasn't big enough, and we had to figure out ways, I had to figure out ways to support my family, and that meant adding value to anything I did on the farming operation. One of the really important things about the Sorghum U is the sponsorship of that, the High Plains Journal, and definitely Sorghum Partners for helping sponsor these meetings like this where we're able to, talk about ways different producers provide value to their crops. Also want to, I have a debt of gratitude for the Kansas Grain Sorghum Producers Association, also the Kansas Commission, which helps with policy. And when I served on those leadership roles, I also saw the opportunity that we could apply to our farming operation. We have a very strict identity preservation grain sorghum operation. We're currently the largest grain sorghum flour mill in the United States. We are an allergen-free company. We're gluten-free, we're dairy-free, we're peanut-free, and we focus on adding value to our grain sorghum based on consumer demand.
All right. I think my mic is already out of juice, so I'm just going to talk really loud. JB, tell us where you are, a little bit about your operation and where grain sorghum fits.
Yeah, sure. And first of all, I want to thank Earl for dating me as if this bug didn't already do it. I farm in the far western Oklahoma Panhandle. Grew up there, went to college about 40 miles away, and been there all of my life. Farmed with my son. I had a good farming relationship with my dad. Now I have that relationship with my son, and at least that's one of the bright spots of getting to be this age. I've had what I consider to be a very complete and successful life, circle of life. So, but anyway, early on in my career, I started farming in 1970. Well, I guess I farmed even through high school, but I wasn't officially farming until 1970 after I got out of college. But I was searching for ways to maximize my operation because I knew farming always had a lot of ups and downs. And I would look around at people that had been successful, and there was 3 things I saw that I thought helped people become landowners And it was the individuals who had farm storage, on-farm storage. And when it came time to harvest their crop, they didn't call in the custom cutters. They combined them themselves. When their crop needed sprayed, they had a sprayer. Didn't hire that done. And so that was three things I thought I needed to incorporate into my operation to maximize it. I built my first grain bin in 1978. It's around a 14,000 bushel bin. Financed it through the FSA, and that loan program is still in very good standing. And I looked at their interest rates before I came here, and their longest loan is a 15-year loan on grain storage, and it's at 2.5%. And if you go down to 12 years, it's like 2.375%. So it's a pretty good program to look at for establishing some farm storage that will always be an asset in your operation. But anyway, I put wheat in that bin and put it in the farmer-owned reserve, and lo and behold, the government loaned me the money, and the government paid for it. So I guess I was one of the first welfare recipients. I don't know, but anyway, it worked very good. I built a second bin in 1982. Did not use the loan program through the government at that time. And then I built a third one in 1985. It gave me 50,000 bushel, and I operated with that until early 2000. And really, through the 80s and 90s, and most of you that are older are aware of this, my main attraction, or my main benefits from farm storage came from my wheat production. Sorghum in the 80s and 90s, if y'all remember, we didn't really market sorghum, we disposed of it. It was marked down to 15, 17% under corn, and that was that. And it all went into the feeding industry. And so anyway, I established a lot of relationships with flour mills and that sort of thing in the 80s and 90s on wheat. And my farm storage is something that it adds value to your grain every year, as long as you raise it. You're always going to gain that basis. You're always going to save that storage. And if you're willing to step out and establish some good markets, some good end user markets, we always strive to, we send grain samples into the grain exchange off of every field. And when we get ready to sell that crop, we can send those to an end user, and they know exactly what they're getting. And as long as you always are honest and sell to an end user where they don't get something they don't expect, you'll get along with them good. You'll establish a good relationship with them. And we have end users now that will actually call brokers and tell them to get a hold of us. And that's another thing, you always want to use we always use a good grain broker. And there are several available. I know one year for several years we'd sold grain direct to a grain company. And finally one year we were working with a broker and also working with this grain company. And we ended up selling it to the broker at 8 cents a bushel higher, and lo and behold, it went to the same grain company. So you need somebody out there that's working on your behalf instead of their behalf. And through the 80s and 90s, that was when I was really just true on farm storage. And after my son come back to farm with me in 93, we had several neighbors retiring. We took on quite a bit more land, and we bought an elevator in early 2000s. We leased it a year and then bought it. And our grain system changed somewhat then, and now we're not really a licensed full-blown elevator, but we will, if we don't raise enough grain to fill our facilities now, we will buy grain from neighbors, and we always have people standing in line wanting to bring us grain. And where we sell fertilizer and chemicals and do custom application, we have a good feel of what neighbors are going to have quality grain, and it's worked good for us. It's worked good for them. we just buy it at the price that the elevators are paying, but we don't charge any storage. And they have to price it by the 1st of March, whether it be wheat or a fall crop. And we always have people stand in line wanting to bring us grain if we have room for it. So anyway, that's worked good, but that's kind of outside the realm of regular farm storage. And another thing that I feel like farm storage has done for us is it made a better farmer out of me. When you're marketing that crop based on quality, you're gonna try to do your fertility to the point that you're gonna have that protein quality in your wheat. You're gonna take the harvest precautions to have a good clean sample of your sorghum, because it just goes with the territory. When you're direct marketing that crop, you just have a different attitude towards it, I think, than you do if you're just going to the elevator. And so anyway, that's kind of where we've landed now. And I guess I think that right now I think we have a little over 800,000 bushels of storage. But it's like I say, it's come a long way since 2000.
All right, we'll get into some other aspects of the operations here. Zack, I think you said last night you don't have that much grain storage, obviously, but you do add value to your grain sorghum crop. You push yields. I think that's adding value in a different way than these other gentlemen do. Just kind of tell us a little bit about what you do to maximize economic yield per acre.
Well, that's one of the main things that I really try to do on my farm is produce as much as I can with a little amount of dollars. I think that's what we all try to do every year, is produce as much as we can with the less amount of money. And that's what I've started doing with my grain sorghum, but to do that, I had to add some money into it. So I basically, on our farm, I noticed yields were just staying basically steady, anywhere from 85 to 100 bushel an acre, every year, year in, year out. And then we had a really good water year. The year before that, the wheat did not do very good, so we had a lot of extra fertilizer still out there on the ground, and we put grain sorghum in those fields. Well, we noticed that the sorghum yield went from the 85 to 100 bushel an acre to 110 to 120. And we thought, okay, there's extra fertilizer out there, that's what's pushing the yields up. And I thought, well, what if I go ahead and add more fertilizer to that ground, spend a little bit more money, and gain more bushels per acre? So I started doing that. So basically, instead of treating sorghum like sorghum, I started treating sorghum like corn, how I do on my farm. Same fertilizer fertility program, made sure I had plenty of nitrogen out there. I start with poultry litter in the fall. I put at least 2 tons an acre of laying house litter. And the laying house litter that I get, it comes from an egg farm. There's no rice hulls, no wood shavings, no nothing in it. It's straight manure right off the belt. So it's very, very high in fertility all the way across there. So I start with 2 ton an acre of that on my corn and sorghum fields. And then make sure I soil test every 3 years before that field goes into corn or milo sorghum, just to see where my levels are at. I make sure that I have plenty of nitrogen out there for that crop. So I'm spending the same amount of money on my corn as I am on my sorghum on my fertility, and that's about $80 an acre is what I'm spending. But the returns, because seed costs are so low on sorghum versus corn, that I make all that money back. So I watched my yields go from 85 to 100 bushel an acre averages across several fields, and my average just shot up tremendously. So now I'm anywhere from 115 to 120 bushel an acre average. And some fields where I'm applying a little bit more fertilizer to it just to see how far I can push the yields. Those fields, it's not economical to do that. I just want to see myself, basically on testing, to see what that sorghum crop has in it, how far I can push it, to see, okay, if I add just a little more fertilizer or micronutrients or this or that, how far can I get there? What's my top end going to be? And so far, I'm in northeast Oklahoma, I get 40 inches of rainfall average a year. I'm non-irrigated. But the rainfall comes at the wrong times for the crops. But I'm at 162 bushel the acre is the highest sorghum I've raised. I think we can get higher than that. I really do. And even make it economical to get higher than that.
We'll come back to that a little bit more. I know very few of us in this room do get 40 inches of rainfall. In fact, I don't know if this year we would get 14 inches of rainfall, but that does help. But I know that your testing program, your on-farm testing program, is unique, and we'll elaborate on that in just a few minutes. Earl, just tell us a little bit about how you add value to sorghum. I know this is a big story, interesting for those of you who haven't heard the New Life story. But Earl, just kind of brief us a little bit on what New Life is all about.
Well, New Life is about consumer demand and identifying the specific characteristics that grain sorghum has and how you apply that into value-added products. We had massive consumer demand and growth in demand for gluten-free food products here in the U.S. Kellogg's, General Mills, they didn't want anything to do with gluten-free until they were forced into it based on consumer demand. Timing is everything in business. We identified the fact that grain sorghum has two attributes that has massive consumer demand: gluten-free and non-GMO. Our growth rate last year was far greater with non-GMO than it was with gluten-free. But the key point is identifying what those attributes that grain sorghum has and how you apply that into a value-added product. We're everything from a plant breeding program, identifying specific characteristics, whether that characteristic is for gluten-free baking flour, for a special flour that is used in Chick-fil-A for coating their products and how that adds value to that, or the special chemistry in those dark sorghum, such as black sorghum or what we call burgundy sorghum, and how that relates to secondary health benefits. I don't know how many people in here watched the Dr. Oz show. 2 days ago, their show focused on black sorghum and the health benefits of that. Who would have thought that? All we did in the 1970s was feed grain sorghum to hogs. And now, it's one of the highest value products and the most demanded specialty grain products here in the United States. And it's identified as that. Our company was a big part of that because we understood marketing, we understood the products we had, and we understood the professionalism it has to be able to market a product into the General Mills and Kellogg's and PepsiCo's. And I can go down the grocery store aisle. When I started this business, there was virtually no products on the grocery store shelf that had grain sorghum in it. Last December, there was over 1,200 products on the grocery store shelves now. And that gives you an idea about identifying characteristics that are in grain sorghum that, as a farmer, we really didn't think had that much value in it. But if you tell the story right, you present it right to the consumer, it has massive value.
So Earl, everyone out here in this room is thinking, how do I get into the New Life business? So tell us just a little bit about the growers who provide grain for you, what's required of them, what's the opportunity, and then tell us a little bit more about the specific products you have.
Sure. Well, I mean, we're very specific on our management because we are a dedicated gluten-free company. That means no cross-contamination. And also the companies that purchase our products have very strict quality characteristics that's demanded of us. And with that also comes a fantastic premium that we provide to those team of growers. And it is a team of growers that we have that's bought in to the system. You know, they know that they're going to get a really nice premium for that grain. And if they produce a premium #1 quality grain that's going to qualify underneath the program, then they're going to receive benefits from that. But that's how you position yourself in these different markets. And we're not only just food and milled flours. We recently sent containers of sorghum to China for alcohol production. And all of these areas have value added to them. We have the opportunity to take an export market away from Australia, where in China, that grain sorghum is valued at $8.75 per bushel. Yeah, we got transportation costs in that, but that's a huge market. That's over 13 million metric tons annually, just for China. So we try to focus on these areas that can add value to grain sorghum, but also in volume. And that's how we can help benefit agriculture in Kansas with grain sorghum by knowing these markets and helping producers have access to those markets in volume.
We'll have opportunity for questions here, but I do want to kind of just ask a few more specifics here, Earl, really quick. The type of grain sorghum that folks are growing for you, that isn't just any old off-the-shelf Sorghum Partners brand. Tell me, what kind of sorghum are you growing? And then you talked about the premiums a little bit. What are the opportunities for your growers as far as premiums are concerned?
Yeah, we can talk first specifically about the genetics and the hybrids. Some of those initial sorghum lines were identified in the 1990s by the plant breeders of Kansas State, Texas A&M, specific for food applications. Those original lines came from Tanzania and Mozambique, where for a few thousand years, those local people hand-selected these sorghums for flavor profile. They're tan plant sorghums, they're white, you guys have seen them growing in the fields. There's a lot of guys who produce those. We focus on very specific hybrids and develop specific hybrids that have higher starch content. They also have less pericarp, that outside portion of that grain. If you have less of that, then you have less grittiness in the bakery flour. That's one specific characteristic in that hybrid. We have another one. We pop sorghum like popcorn in our plant. We can do a semi-load of pop sorghum every single day. There's only 8,000 pounds in a full semi by cubic feet in a full semi-load of pop sorghum. That's just like popcorn. You have to have the right genetics. You have to have the right grain characteristics for that application. So we have, in our team of growers, we provide the seed of that popping sorghum for that application. One for bakery flour. We have another one, a waxy sorghum, that's for alcohol production or for puffed snacks or for the alcohol production in China. We also develop that sorghum and we provide the seed for that one as well. But those will give you three categories of products that we offer our consumers that have higher value, and we apply that to plant genetics. We can't have a lot of yield drag with those either. So this hasn't been a short-term project. We're talking 10 years of understanding what a market is, applying the genetics and testing to that, the line development as part of our company, so you have no downside risk, only upside potential.
Very good. JB, on-farm storage is something that we don't see a lot of in Kansas to this point. And I think growers, to maximize the value of their crop, as you alluded to, with capturing the basis and also just taking advantage of the volatility of grain markets, we're seeing a lot more interest in that. It's not as easy as putting up a grain bin and just dumping your grain in there, is it? Tell us a little bit about kind of the basic management of stored grain.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. Management of stored grain starts obviously when you plant it because you're looking for quality. But we always are very particular when harvesting. We want a dry, clean grain sample going in that bin because that just alleviates so many storage problems. Higher test weight grain just stores better, and we always try to keep the moisture at a very manageable level to where we don't have to try to dry it with air. Now, in our country where we farm, the humidity's low enough, we can dry some grain, some with air, but it's better to just put it in there right and monitor it and take care of it. And I know sometimes I think my son gets a little aggravated with me because he'll say, well, neighbors over there, they're cutting today and it's testing such and so, and I say, well, we need to get it down. We need to get it down about 3/4 of a point. Let's just hold off another day. But that's one of the, and of course in weeds you have to monitor for insects, and we always cool it down good in the winter. And most years we get by without having to fumigate our wheat, but if we do, that's about a 5 cent a bushel cost, and so it's of course going to direct to flour mill end users. If they find a live bug, they reject the load immediately, and that's if we get a load of wheat in Wichita to the flour mill and it gets rejected, we get hurt pretty bad on it because they obviously can't haul it back to Oklahoma. So it's imperative. And I know right after I built my first bin, I went to an extension meeting where they were telling us some ins and outs of grain storage and monitoring the grain and that sort of thing. And at the end of the meeting, a gentleman in the audience asked the presenter, he said, well, how often should I check that wheat out there in my bin? And the presenter said, I thought this was a great answer. He said, well, how many bushels does your bin hold? And the gentleman told him, and he said, okay, that equates out to about $30,000. He said, if you had a 5-gallon bucket hanging out there in that bin with $30,000 cash in it, how often would you go out there and open the door and see if that's still in there? So it's you got to be ready to take those extra steps if you're going to get into the farm storage.
Zack, 162 bushel per acre. That's a pretty admirable goal and attainable goal for you every year. Now, you have kind of started an on-farm research program, or you and your family have, and also kind of manage your crop accordingly with what you have learned with on-farm research. Kind of tell us a little bit about how you conduct your research programs, and then kind of some of those end results.
Well, as Bill said, on-farm research is basically the number one thing that I look at on our farm. How do I know if the snake oil the salesman's trying to sell me actually works? Well, the first thing I tell him is, give me some free product. I'll try it side by side. If it pays for itself and makes more bushels than what it costs, I'll use it. So that's what I look at. I look at, okay, I'll take a 1 acre block, treat it like I have the whole field, and I'll treat it how I normally do. But through that field, I'll have test strips right and left, and I make sure I use a yield monitor to check those strips. And I make sure I keep track of spreadsheets. I've got one right here in front of me. I make sure I keep track of how much every single thing costs that I'm doing on that, all the way down to the penny. And then at the end, I make sure that I make money on that. If it costs me $5 an acre and I didn't get the 2 bushels to pay for it, it's out the door. I'm not using it. So before you go make a big investment across the whole farm, make sure it works first. So you can look at all of their research and all their data they want to throw at you. Unless it's done by a university or an independent lab, I wouldn't trust it, because they're a salesman trying to sell you something. So make sure it works first. And that's what we do on our farm. Anybody comes to us and wants us to try something, I tell them if I can get some free product to try on a few acres, I want to do it. And if it works, and it pays for itself, and I gain bushels, well, I'll buy a few more 100 acres the next year. So that the research, we work very closely with OSU and a little bit with K-State, but mainly OSU. We do a lot of research with them. It's a lot of work. It really is. Going out there with a small plot planter, planting plots, replicated plots, side-by-sides, splitting the sprayer. It takes a lot of time, but I think there's so much that is to be gained from those tests that you can find that magic bullet that gives you 15 to 20 bushels an acre by spending just maybe $6 to $10 an acre. Whether it be a fungicide application or micronutrients or plant hormones. There's so many different things out there that people are saying, oh, gain yield, gain bushels. You know, and that's what I'm for. I'm for pushing my bushels as far as I can, as long as it's economical. If it's going to pay for itself, that's great, and if it makes me money, that's great. But if it loses, I'm not with it.
Very good. Let's open it up to some questions. We've got a pretty diverse panel here, so a lot of opportunity for questions. Who has one? No one? There we go. Yes, ma'am. Question is about plant hormones. Zack?
Okay, well, there's some different companies out there that are selling, they're called plant hormone regulators. It's like cytokines. They kind of help boost the plant in a drought, hard time. They'll, the word just lost me. You know, it really helps the plant. It's kind of like spraying a fungicide out there. It really helps that plant stay healthy, make different hormones inside to try to resist the drought that's coming in. So that's some of the products that I'm using across the whole county.
Thank you.
Gentleman in the back.
Well, just my general observation that some of that, the new products are biostimulants. And you get into a little bit of a gray area because you've got so many things that affect, first of all, plant health and translate into yield, that it's very hard to single out that one thing that's making the big difference. So the question I was going to ask too, when you said if it doesn't work, you throw it out the door. You know, having gone through Kansas State University in a graduate program, we kind of learn not to just take the first answer as the only answer. But now I understand you're a producer, not, you know, getting funded for every one of those projects. So.
Right. I guess I should elaborate a little bit on that. I don't immediately throw it out. Minimum 3 years. Minimum 3 years for me on side by side. And after that 3 years, across the average, if it didn't make me anything, then that's when I set it to the side. I guess I should elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I work for a retailer and we support some of the PGRs and, you know, some of them help in cell elongation, root initiation, and a lot of those things. And getting a plant off to a good start is critical, but it's got a lot of things to go through before it, you know, makes grain and you get it in a bin.
Correct. And some of those products that I've used, they're a tool in the toolbox, I guess I should say. Like you said, root development. Sometimes I check those products, you know, if you get a big root, sometimes that doesn't necessarily translate all the way to yield, but it will help your plant be healthy just in case. And it's kind of some of the things I've learned is there's different tools in the toolbox to use different times of the year in different ways. But yeah, I agree with you. And some of my strip trials, it may be a kitchen sink application where everything in there is done, and I want to see what everything does. And then there's one product pulled out, next product pulled out, and then even single products. That way I can try and figure out, did that one product A and product C together help out, or was it just product A?
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Zach, could you elaborate more in a conversation here I've had about test weight and things that you found that you may not have a specific bushel increase, but your test weight was definitely increased some of the biological?
The question is about test weight and the impact some of your research has had on test weight.
So, those are some of the products, Craig, that I'm looking for, is ones that increase the test weight, because if I have a high test weight, basically that's bushels across the scale. It may not be physical bushels, but according to the weights and how things are computed out, that's bushels. And that's, I've had the opportunity to talk to some high-yield corn growers in the States and kind of pick their brain. One of the growers I really enjoyed visiting with was Stephen Aldrich out of Hart, Texas. Stephen did a lot of on-farm research with different products and trying to push his bushels to the max. And one of the things that he kind of talked to me about was test weight. He said some of these corn yield contests, they're not necessarily making 500 bushels an acre it may only be 300 bushels an acre, but their test weights are 67 to 68. So that correlates to yield there in the end. So those are some of the products that I'm looking at, and I want to try and increase the test weight as much as I can. And I found a few products that can actually hurt you. And I've noticed lower test weights, which the product itself was supposed to actually raise the test weight, and instead it dropped it. And very well could have been the variety that year or those years, but those are all things that you want to look at. Not necessarily yield, but test weights, staggerings, everything, all the way across.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Your farm storage, do you have an estimated cost, what you figure your cost is as far as the storage cost on that grain per bushel throughout the year? Because maybe I misunderstood, you made a statement that storage was not much cost to it. So if I used to work for retail, we stored, we had cost. So I'm just curious what your idea of your cost was in storing that grain.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. And there's a utility cost. You always have to run some variation. You have the cost of putting it in the bin. You have the cost of getting it out. But it's really pretty negligible, And for instance, most elevators now are charging in the neighborhood of 5 cents a bushel a month just for storage, and that's supposed to cover their costs. And ours doesn't run anywhere near that. I'm thinking, probably in the neighborhood of 3.5, 4 cents to actually get it in and get it out. Of course, our bins are designed with slides and gravity feeds. We don't have to leg everything. We don't have to auger everything. Once we get it in there, a lot of it we can slide out via gravity, and those sort of things always help also. But yeah, that's a good question. And I know last year we had most of our storage tied up in wheat, and we did buy a bagger. And the bagging it saves you the trucking because we bagged it right at the field. But the bagging costs are around 15 cents a bushel in the bag. That doesn't have it out. And so anyway, and of course, with the storage, you got periodic maintenance, and of course you have to pay for the facility out of your increases for several years too. But once you get that asset paid for, there's not a real high wear factor. You may have to replace some flatting on an auger, you may have to replace a motor once in a while, but there's not a real high maintenance factor in the on-farm storage.
Can I piggyback on that, JB, and just ask you, what do you think you average, what is your average gain due to on-farm storage? So if it's going to cost you 3.5 to 4 cents a bushel, what's your return on that?
Yeah, that's good too, and I really didn't bring that out, I just hadn't mentioned it. And the nice thing about on-farm storage, even when grain prices are in the tank like they are now, we're at $3 to $3.30 a bushel grain sorghum price now. We're gaining about 15% by going direct to the end user with that. And we generally sell our grain FOB, our location, but we always reserve the right to haul part of it if we want to. And that works out pretty good too. If they're paying a reasonable freight rate, we've got labor that we're not as busy in the winter when we're moving grain as we are in the summer, and a lot of times we'll put on a truck or two and haul all that out ourselves, and that's another benefit, another way to utilize labor. That we have to keep labor through the winter, so we have them when we need them. Not everybody's good at working in the shop on machinery, but we've got guys we put in the truck in the winter and kind of help out and help pay the way till we get into the period of time that we really need them.
That's a really good point, because in our contracts that we write for our specialty grains, we build monthly carrying charges based on delivery. With that, there's a lot of the grain under our IP programs for on farm by farmers, and within that contract is the carrying charge, which also includes interest. So that's pretty standard in the industry that we work in.
Other questions? Earl, you talked a lot about your program. What kind of farmers are you looking for to be producers for New Life?
I guess you could call that a demographic, but primarily the producers that we work with are the producers that want to get a premium for raising their high quality grain, rather than having to take that grain to the elevator and mix it in with the other farmers that are producing grain sorghum that are substandard, or farmers that don't really care about adding 3% trash to that grain and haul it to the elevator. They want to get a premium price for a premium product that they're producing. And that's, comes from producers like Zack that pays attention to the quality of the grain that they're delivering and should get a premium for that grain. And that's where we apply the opportunity. And we identify the markets, and we push these guys as hard as possible on the value side of that and deliver that value back to the producers for producing high quality grain. It's simply one thing, it's opportunity.
Would everyone in this room be able to grow for your business?
Underneath our program, as long as they're well educated about that program. It is that, just 1 second. This is our document. It's called a Farm to Family Food Safety Program. And what that does, identify every place that grain touches from the time that seed goes into the ground until it's delivered to us. And we've been given some very good accolades for producing a program like that from the Kellogg's company. It's one of the best IP programs and traceability programs there is in the United States. And with this program, you can pick up a box of Kellogg's cereal that has sorghum on that came from our company, and trace that box of cereal, the sorghum that was produced, and delivered into that box of cereal right to the field that it was produced on. And traceability is tremendously important now in the food industry. We have marketing people from Kellogg's and General Mills, PepsiCo, that come out and they talk to the farmers. They want to see how that sorghum is produced, and they want to see the fields that it's produced in, and they connect the consumer with the production. And a lot of that's changed over the last 5 years as far as the importance of that. But it's well documented, it's easy to follow, anybody can do it. But we're strict. This is the Bible for us, and but that's reality.
Yeah, I might add right quick. I visited with Earl about his program, and I can tell you he's dedicated and he's strict about it. And I figured out right quick, if I was gonna produce for his program, I really needed to dedicate a bit just to his program, because if they find a grain of wheat in there, it's not going to go. And it's strict cleaning of combines and all your transportation equipment. And Earl means business, but he's got a good program if you're willing to do that.
Are there very strict requirements on crop protection chemicals and fertilizers?
Question is, crop protection chemicals and fertilizer for your program, Earl, are there?
Yeah. One primary one is no post-applied chemicals past flowering. So you don't have any, because grain sorghum is different. It has, the grain is exposed, and we're under strict requirements for pesticide residues, and so that's just part of the program. So you get into some late season challenges with some dead worms, and you have to spray. You spray it, but then that disqualifies the field. But that's just part of the program. But we haven't had that happen very often. We've been very fortunate with our growers not having headworm problems. But that's one that's very important, is no post-flowering applications of herbicides and pesticides.
Earl, you haven't touched on the $1 million question here. What premium opportunity is there with your products?
I mentioned 4 different categories of grains, and each one of those categories has a different formula applied to them. So I'm going to have to throw out an average here. Average over your elevator price is going to be $1 per bushel, and that's based on a piece of corn. And then post that, then like I said, when we have those contracts, then we build into that contract the delivery and the cost of that delivery. That includes storage and interest. But we have front side and back side contracts, and those are written like with the company, with Kellogg's for a specific cereal product. And then we write that with the producer for a specific volume of that grain, with definitely act of God clauses in that.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that would pose some real problems with sugarcane aphids, sorghum midge, you mentioned headworm. I mean, that would be then the risk the guy's taking, that he could have a pest infestation that pretty much.
That's where you get back to the genetic side. You can't have yield drag or very minimal yield drag, because if you have a massive yield drag with a specific genetics, and you're going to take a large loss on that if you don't have qualifying grain, then you're going to be in trouble. And that's why when we initiated this program, downside risk when it came to yield was one that we had to minimize. I can't get buy-in by producers, with a strict program like that, unless you have the yield characteristics that go along with the grain characteristics. So that's how we address that.
So when you go into that deal, is he obligated to produce a certain amount of grain by the end of the season?
With act of God clause, yes, we definitely understand that. And we've been in this business long enough to understand the risks. And so we'll have production in multiple regions, from the Panhandle of Texas through up into Nebraska and northeast Kansas. And it's amazing, and I've been really blessed, coming from 30 years of production agriculture, to be able to now to communicate with the heads of marketing, with the Kellogg's and General Mills, and understanding what's required at each level of that supply chain. That's amazing. I never thought I would understand that the way I do now. But they also understand act of God clauses and how we can address that in the production regionally. So we have irrigated production, we have dryland production, and we have multiple regions of production. Number one, it takes a lot of communication with those producers throughout the growing season. So we have a good handle on total production of each one of those hybrids out there. Because we have contracts that are being rewritten throughout the growing season as well.
Let's just switch gears here really quick. Zack, in the interest of you doing all the heavy lifting on your on-farm research program, and those of us who don't want to put forth that kind of effort, what are you finding are the things that really work for you that you found in grain sorghum to boost yield?
Well, the main thing is don't treat sorghum like everybody thinks it is, the red-headed stepchild. If you're going to grow sorghum, treat it how you would your corn, how you would your wheat. Whatever you're doing to your corn, I would say mimic on your sorghum. Number one, nitrogen. Do not limit your nitrogen. As long as you have the rainfall and you have the capability to produce those bushels, don't limit yourself. Go ahead and spend a little bit of extra money on there, and maybe even, as you said, one of the things I found, split application. I put about 40 to 50% up front, and then a little bit right before boot, I'll go out and with the Y drops and apply another 50 pounds, maybe 60, and then right when the sorghum head's coming out, right at boot, I go ahead and hit it again. Make sure I have a little bit of some rain chances in there. If not, I throw a little bit of agrotane in there to help hold the nitrogen as long as I can. I would say, number one, is nitrogen. Fertility, make sure your fertility's up. And the best thing you can see in your field is your shadow. I can tell you that right now. Scout. I probably take, in a 7-day week, I probably spend, I would say, at least 8 to 10 hours a week scouting fields. Whether that's boots on the ground, in the field, walking around, using aerial imagery from satellites, or whether it's even breaking out the drone and going out there and flying fields. Boots on the ground. I can't stress that enough, scouting. I would say, I can't really put a yield, bushel per acre on it, but I'm almost certain I've raised some yield by scouting. because I'm finding problems as soon as they're happening, or seeing right before, I'm noticing something's a little off about that plant. I can get things going. I can get the sprayer loaded as quick as possible and get out there and get that problem taken care of. Eye management. Don't just put the grain in the field. Don't just put the seed in the ground. Leave it till it comes up. Throw a little fertilizer and harvest. You're losing yield that way.
Questions? So, JB, we've talked a little bit about maximizing our yield. We've talked a little bit about value-added markets. It all comes down to storage. We've got to have a place to put this crop. Again, we've talked with you quite a little bit about that, but particularly the revenue possibilities from on-farm storage. A lot of guys are like me. We're kind of interested with, maybe we need to put some up on our farm, but we don't really know how to even get started. Go back to 1978 and kind of tell me a little bit about some of the things you learned about putting storage up on your farm. How did you just get the ball rolling?
Okay. Yeah, there's in 1978, things have gotten a lot better since then. In fact, that being with the aeration system that pulled from the top down. And if you ever, if you ever get a little wet grain in there, you got to pull it down through all of that, pull the moisture down through all of that grain. It's more of it's a weak concept. Weak's okay with ever pulled down through. Anything is better with the push system with some fans in the top. So that's been a tremendous change that we've seen. And also something I hadn't mentioned, I don't think. Sometimes you hit that real golden egg. Like right now, people, if any of you had any even 59-pound test weight wheat that's 13 protein, you can just almost name your price on it. We get calls every day wanting to know if we've got any wheat left. And the last offer I had on 13 protein wheat was $2.15 over the December. By that time it was the December. Now it would be over the March. $2.15 a bushel picked up at our facility, and I imagine if I'd told him I had some and I wanted 2.5, I think he'd bought it for $20. So every once in a while you hit that real golden egg that really makes you feel good, and it kind of reminds me of what a person I'm sure most of you've heard of, a gentleman by the name of Warren Buffett. He has a saying. He says, "Never fail to take a calculated risk. If you hit, you're going to be very pleased and you're going to be very proud." And he said, if you don't hit, you're going to be wiser. So it's a win-win either way. So anyway, calculate your risk of building some farm storage and follow Warren Buffett, and I think it'll turn out all right.
You talked about the premium opportunities with wheat, particularly in 2017 and going into 2018. How about grain sorghum? Are there opportunities to add value with quality characteristics in grain sorghum?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's a lot of exciting things going on in grain sorghum, and Earl has mentioned them, and you mentioned them. Throughout most of Kansas and even in my area of Oklahoma, we've got ready access to ethanol plants for our product. And this sorghum oil pathway, when it gets final approval, it's back in the comment period now, but it has been approved by EPA. When it gets final approval, I think Tom Wilson probably tell you today that it could add as much as 30 cents a bushel value to our sorghum. Well, that's just another value that's there to work with sorghum. The waxy hybrids that Earl has talked about, they're going to be great for ethanol. They're working on breeding new hybrids that have higher starch content, and those are going to demand a premium from the ethanol plants. That's where it all comes from. And there's been some tremendous advances in breeding of sorghum just in the last 2 or 3 years that are going to make it easier to develop these hybrids very quickly. So I think we're going to see some very exciting things happen in sorghum. It's an exciting crop right now. Everybody's talking about sorghum. That's a good feeling. because we're pretty limited in our rainfall environment. That's sorghum and wheat is about all we can do dry land. We get 16, 17 inches average rainfall in the western Oklahoma panhandle. And so that's the two crops. We rotate everything, and that's where it all comes from.
One of the things I want to kind of add to JB and Earl's deal is, with me, I'm raising my bushels, but I have to have somewhere to go with those bushels. I can take them to the local elevator and go ahead and forfeit the basis and everything that's there and lose some money. Or I can go out and start finding these value-added markets, like Earl's. If I had some on-farm storage, which our farm is very looking into for sure this next year, because I'm finding markets are close to me in hog production. As we know, society kind of likes some non-GMO stuff out there, and sorghum, well, thank the good Lord, it's non-GMO already. So they don't have to trace any grain down, they don't have to have identity preserved for the sorghum. Sorghum's non-GMO. So they're feeding this grain to these hogs and selling their meat as non-GMO, no hormone added meat. So they're paying a premium over Chicago corn. As long as I can get it to them, if I have the storage to hold it, because they don't have any storage, I can make at least $1, if not $1.50 more than I am in my local market right now. So it takes a little bit going out there and kind of researching and seeing what's around. Talking to the sorghum partner guys, that's how I found this hog market. And working close with even the sorghum checkoff and national sorghum producers. If you're looking for a market or you're trying to research and see if there's one out there, they are willing to answer every single question you have and try and help you as much as they can. That's what they're there for, is to help us.
Questions? Let's go with this gentleman here.
Yeah, I'm not too smart with it. Is sorghum likely to stay non-GMO?
Question is sorghum likely to stay non-GMO? And I don't know if any of you
I
guys...
would say yes, because our legal team would definitely fight it. That is the highest growth trait in grain sorghum right now for all of these marketing opportunities. And I'll give you an example. I was in China right before November making presentations to alcohol plants. The biggest thing I heard was cross-contamination of GMO corn and soybeans. It's not about us, and it's not about how I feel about GMOs on our farm. It's about the consumer, and the consumer willing to pay more for a product with that characteristic. And so it's been a huge opportunity and value-added trait for grain sorghum being non-GMO.
And the national sorghum producers is definitely staying abreast with any attempts to bring GMO into sorghum. And they're going to have to, we've got it down where I think they're going to have to kind of at least meet with the Sorghum Producers Association and go through quite a bit of legal work and still, it's not something we're encouraging, but we want it where we get a chance to look at anything that comes down the road.
Do you have a follow-up question, sir?
Well, I don't know the question. The state can maintain that position way that might do an awful lot to help us as the overall community maximize use of our water resources.
The statement is maximizing use of our water resources. I think we'll talk a little bit about that at lunch today. Yeah. Yes. Question.
Question for you, I guess, Earl. Do you see a problem with demand, not meaning that we have a lack of demand, but a demand that is too large for the sorghum industry to meet, and then if we can't meet that demand, then we have the problem of demand goes away because they found other products someplace else?
I absolutely don't see that, because right now grain sorghum is the hottest grain in the world with all of these unique traits. And you mentioned water, but sustainability is massive too with grain sorghum. The utilization of less of our natural resources in the production of that grain. Farmers are really good at overproducing. I don't care whether it's white wheat or whatever these specialty markets are. The key point is trying to match the demand with the production. You know, farmers are very flexible in what they plant and where they plant it, as long as the dollars are there. If you got a return on investment on a specific acre, you're going to plant the crop that's going to maximize that. There's one thing that I would really want to emphasize, and that's the export market. You know, there's over half of our grain sorghum in the United States that's exported, and primarily to China. There's 1.4 billion people in that country, and they want more grain sorghum. They're willing to pay for it. And so I think as far as markets and market value and volume, I think it's export and it's also domestic for food applications.
This gentleman?
Is there anything to be concerned about with the recent talk about NAFTA and the possibility of making adjustments there? Or is it even in the radar of those folks sitting down at that conference?
Question is about concern of future of our trade agreements. And Earl, you probably can handle that.
Yeah, I mean, we're primarily, of course, we're talking about Mexico because without a doubt, there's a lot of grain sorghum that's going to feed applications, dairy, poultry, swine operations in Mexico. You know, is there concern? Yes. And part of that's because of negativity surrounding that. In the end, is it going to hurt agriculture? No, because there's a demand for the product. Key.
The gentleman here.
I'm Brad with Shield Ag, and I attended a lot of this meetings and stuff. The guy was asking about the importance of sorghum. China has tried several different grains for their alcohol, and sorghum by far is the best for their alcohol.
Comment is that grain sorghum fits China's growing appetite for, I think it's called Baiju or Baijiu.
So, Joe, man, I drank way too much of that stuff. They drink a lot of alcohol. I mean, what is it, over 13 million tons of grain sorghum alcohol is produced annually in China, and their national liquor is made out of grain sorghum. So all of those plants I went into was producing alcohol out of grain sorghum. So I bought it. Ranges from 35% alcohol up to 60, and they drink it straight. You got to be a man if you're going to drink that turd.
I don't think it's anything like vodka. I don't think we'll ever compete with them for their use of their alcohol.
But I want to talk about the market quickly, and that's because Australia has really focused their grain sorghum marketing to that specific industry in China, and it's a high-value industry. And like I said, it's $8.75 a bushel currently, and the Australian crop is poor in quality and poor in volume, and we got this narrow window to try to capture that away from the Australian exports. And we're there. We're getting there. And we can produce volume, we can produce quality. The other message that I got from those producers is the trash that's in that sorghum when it comes to number 2 on their feed applications. Because they're diverting some of that red sorghum into their alcohol production by cleaning it up. They're taking lots and then running through cleaners. The amount of trash that's in that is at the edge plus a little bit on the foreign material that's being exported. And a lot of that is trash dumping into our grain as it's being loaded on the vessels at the ports to meet that, to equal that allowable limit of foreign material.
Gentlemen.
Some of these guys in Kinsley are making bottled vodka. How come we don't have it in this meeting?
Bill, how come?
The question is the gentleman in Kinsley who's making sorghum vodka, why don't we have any at this meeting? The answer is because we could not get it in a small enough quantity bottle to send home with you guys. Otherwise we would. So we're still working on that. Other questions? We have, we'll take one more.
Zack, you really kind of finished this going off your comment about on-farm testing is too hard. So Zack, for what you look at, you understand that that's very long history of on-farm testing. I mean, I go back to them over a decade now. What are the basics you really need to have in on-farm testing to be good on-farm?
So you mean the number one thing that needs to be there first in order to start on-farm testing? Well, it's about soil tests. You need to check your soil, make sure. I mean, that's the number one thing I would start with. you haven't tested your soil in over 3 years, drop a road. Seeds, the items, it's the number one thing you need to check. If your pH is off, or your nutrients are off, the whole thing's off.
Well, I mean, for you to get into it, do you guys feel like you're gonna have recommended small plots? You have to have highly out, what do you have in your farm system to do what makes you make a decision?
Well, I guess anything, really. What do you have to have to start on-farm testing? Do you have a sprayer? Yes or no? Do you have a garden spreader, push spreader? That'll help out. It doesn't have to be 100-foot swaths, quarter-mile long. It can be 3-foot wide, 20-foot long. I'm sure every single person here has the right equipment to start on-farm testing. If you have a planter, you have several different boxes on that planter. You can, check different rows, do different seed treatments. Basically the equipment in your shed, you could start on-farm testing with that equipment in your shed. You don't have to buy anything extra. When you start buying extra things, that's after you've done the small-scale testing and you're making money off of what you're mining.
Does that answer your question, Brian? Yes, sir.
Precision ag is a big and important thing now. It looks like a lot will really improve. Some of it has quite a price. I'd be interested in your take on if it's a little ahead of its time for the economics we have right now, or if there are parts that offer more hope than others.
In my opinion, there may be some things out there that's a little ahead of the time. I don't think we're ready for. One of those being, autonomous equipment. I don't think a lot of farmers are ready for that quite yet. But then again, there's a lot of precision ag that I look at now and I'm still a young farmer, but I think, man, 10 years ago, why didn't we have this? If we would have had this back then, that would be great. One of them being yield monitoring combine. You can look at yield maps as you're going, and that's kind of one of the things that I guess I can say irritate me a little bit with some farmers is they have yield monitoring combine, but they don't utilize maps to come out of it. It's just a pretty color map they see when they're out there cutting the field to see, oh great, this spot here had 150 bushel acres, or that's great. Well, take those maps, implement them into some precision ag software on your computer, and you can start drawing areas out, finding your good areas in your field. One of the things that I'm going to start doing, I have enough yield maps now over the course of, we've been yield mapping, I'd say 8 years now total, and even before that, that's one thing we really have on is record keeping. All the spreadsheets, notebook papers, I can't tell you how many of them little pocket notebooks we've got set up on the shelf that say Milo planting, 1972 or whatever, all the years. We've got all kinds of notes and everything, and they're backed up on the computer. But taking those yield maps, I'm going to start looking at my ground and making profit maps. We all know how many dollars per acre we put into that field. Break it down to 1 acre grids, 2 acre grids, and if there's consistent over the course of 4 or 5 years areas that I'm losing money on, well, I don't need to push all that fertilizer in those areas because I'm not going to make any money anyway. Just drop a little bit of some inputs in there, and that's going to in turn raise my bottom line there, my profit. I seen a tweet the other day, and I said, if you have areas, take your lowest yielding 10% of your areas, take them out, and you're going to gain 10% on the top end. Turn the grass. You can take a hay market, and the grass will grow anywhere, as we know, we try to kill it. Some people may already have hay equipment out there, and maybe the low quarter of the field is always salty, but if we're going to bring in a good review, go out there and start hay and make some money off those acres.
Will you use NDVI imagery then to help your scouting? Because you mentioned the 1,000 days.
Yes, sir. That I could say is probably one of the best things that we ever implemented on our farm was NDVI imagery. One of them, the main thing being on-the-go variable rate green seeder. We started out with a wheat handheld unit, and now we're running. We've got the seeder heads on the sprayer. We're variable rating on the go. Wheat, milo, and corn all together.
Are you the guy in Miami?
That would be my uncle, but yeah, same family, yes, sir.
You're going to hear a lot more about nitrogen from Dr. Rendel here from Oklahoma State. We have one more question here, and then we're going to have to break it up here.
I just wondered if you're very way seeing how much percentage people are.
Well, variable rate seeding, I have not got that technology quite yet. I guess my planter is a 1995 1760 John Deere. It's chain drive. That's one of the. We always have the money, all the money in the world. We have every high tech thing we could, and that's one of them. I think there's a future for that. I really do. I think in certain areas it'll help out. Some farms that are pretty variable, which I think everybody would say the farm's a variable farm, but I think that will be something that's going to be pretty good. But on my farm, I don't have it, but I really do want it.
Yeah, and Zack, I might quickly add, we had that problem with the chain drive over the planter at one time, and we took the wheel drive off of it, and I hydraulic motor on the drive shaft, and we had to monitor the dosage population. We suddenly had a variable rate planter just by tweaking our hydraulic dial a little bit.
Yeah.
One more question before we go.
I was going to ask JB, I know Zach's talking about on-site storage. If you didn't have on-site storage at this point in your operation and had to go from zero to having it, what would your steps be, the chronology of what you would be doing?
Oh, that is a good question. Well, knowing what I know about farm storage, I'm sure I would be, I'd be listening very intently to the gentleman that's going to be here today, later in a breakout session, telling about some of the technology that they're able to put into the grain storage bins. Now, I look forward to that. I think it'll be very interesting. And that's something that we haven't done, I guess mainly because the little drives on the board won't let us put anything in there that's going to cause us a problem.
I just had one little quick thing there. Communication. Find those partners with your farm that will help you out. Communicate with them. Ask questions. I'm a young pup. I can't tell you how many questions I ask somebody all the time. Ask those questions. You're going to get answers, and they're eventually going to help you out. I'm going to kind of tout the Sorghum check off here really quick, Bill. I've got some flyers here. Bill said me and him with the leadership Sorghum along with Craig and Ethan out there. If you're curious about the Sorghum industry, you want to see it from A to B, meaning from the Sorghum Partners Nursery all the way to the exports at New Orleans, seeing some of the new live markets. I would look highly into this. One of the best leadership programs there is out there. You gain to be a little bit better leader, but the one thing is you see the Sorghum industry from A to B, and I can't tell you how many things we learned when we were out there that I had no idea about. One of the gentlemen in the back there, he's talking about NAFTA and everything. I can tell you right now, the checkoff and the national sorghum producers, they're in Washington. They're helping us. They're making sure that that's not going to hurt us any at all. They are there for us, and they're helping us out.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause, please.